Jura is so insanely powerful that he managed to one-shot the strongest shinobi to ever live. Going into Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, I don't think any of us were ready for someone this strong to appear in the first 4 chapters. But could Jura really defeat everyone in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex? Well, the short answer is no, he can't. Since we can't forget about Boruto, the young lord himself, god of all shinobi. But apart from Boruto, there really isn't anyone else that could stand in Jura's way. So let's discuss what makes Jura so strong and the true extent behind all of his powers. Jura's chakra likely stems from Jigen or Isshiki, or there is a slim chance that it could even come from the Otsutsuki god himself. However, this is yet to be confirmed, but there is a few hints that lead us towards the idea that Jura originates from Jigen, and this is his target being to devour Naruto. We know that Jigen, or at least Isshiki, had the largest emotional connection with Naruto. When I say emotional connection, however, I don't mean love, and Jigen's connection to Naruto stem from hatred as well as appreciation for Naruto's strength. As a community, we have speculated that it is love that connects these Shinju to their targets, but the likelihood is it is instead the person who the vessel had the most connection with. Examples being Bug, who lived a sheltered life, so the only person he felt the most connection for was Ada due to her charm ability. Then you have Moegi, who was in love with Konohamaru, and finally Sasuke, who loved his daughter Sarada. However, it's pretty obvious from this guy's antics that Jigen did not love anyone. However, like I said earlier, the person he was most connected to was actually Naruto. The reason this works is because we know from Sasuke and all of the Uchiha that chakra is actually connected to a person's emotions, and we see this constantly with Uchiha's Sharingan awakenings usually being tied to a high emotionally staked moment, whether it is anger or despair for most Uchiha or love for Sarada. It is the emotions of the user that triggers the flow of chakra to their eyes, causing the awakening. And this is why I believe that Jura is likely stemming from Jigen's chakra, and even more proof of this is the levels in power of Jura. Now it seems as though the power of the Shinju directly corresponds with the power of the user engulfed by the tree. So using this logic, we saw that Kawaki was able to overpower Hidari in their brief conflict, and we all saw what happened to Hidari when he tried to fight Boruto. However, on the contrary, Kawaki was absolutely dismantled by Jura, and we have seen that Jura managed to snipe Boruto with a compressed Biju bomb that caused Boruto to be on the brink of death, both feats which Hidari could only dream of doing. We know that from Naruto and Sasuke's fight with Jigen, that Jigen is far stronger than both of them, especially on an individual level, and obviously Sasuke stands even less of a chance against Isshiki. So it makes sense that if Jura stems from Jigen or Ishiki's chakra, Jura should be a lot stronger than Hidari. But what's interesting is Hidari is actually much stronger than Sasuke ever was. The reason for this is likely due to him having the abilities of Sasuke, minus the Sharingan, but also having the Ten-Tailed Chakra and the Claw Mark Jutsu. I would say that there is a pretty strong argument here that Hidari is a threat far beyond Jigen. This is because when the Claw Grimes awakened, Code was in no rush to try and face any of them on a one-on-one basis, likely aware that they were all at the bare minimum relative to him in power. And I know it's hard to believe, but Code should be and probably is stronger than Jigen in terms of power. I would then assume that since Hidari got such a big buff from what Sasuke was capable of, Jura should have had the same thing happen to him, meaning that Jura is a much stronger version of Jigen, and I would assume that Jura is at least somewhat relative to Isshiki, but there is also some data about Jura that backs this up. Despite Jura's short screen time, this menace has already amassed a long list of feats, and the first of which being his fight with Kawaki. Now it is extremely generous towards Kawaki to even call this a fight. It was low-key just Kawaki catching that left right good night and then just having a little snooze afterwards. So this fight was very interesting, since when Kawaki reawakens and goes to try and help Himawari, Delta tells Kawaki, hey, you stand no chance against the likes of Jura, so what's the point in just going to try and fight him again when the results will just be the same? And Kawaki agrees. He knows that Jura is miles ahead of him in terms of power, to the point where Kawaki can't even comprehend the idea of beating Jura. And with his naturally high ego, this does mean a lot for him to say this. Kawaki is far beyond Jigen in terms of power, since Kawaki is a perfect vessel for Isshiki compared to Jigen, who was only partial, and hence Jigen could only use a small portion of Ishiki's true power. Whereas we saw with Kawaki's dojutsu, he is able to use 100% of Ishiki's true power. But this obviously meant nothing, as Jura, who also had access to Ishiki's power, not necessarily his dojutsu, but his combat experience and strength, was able to no-diff Kawaki. So very roughly, Jura scales to an absolute bare minimum of Isshiki Otsutsuki. And from his other feats, it is very possible Jura could rival the likes of Baryon and Naruto. It is also important to note that although this is purely speculation, Jura should be much stronger than Isshiki too. And the reason I say this was because before Jigen was killed, we know that his karmic extraction was at 100%, meaning his DNA was 100% Isshiki at that point. This means that Jura, in terms of raw strength, should far exceed Isshiki to the degree that Hidari exceeds Sasuke, assuming that the increase in power for all of the Shinju is equivalent, due to Jura technically gaining his chakra from a synthetic copy of Isshiki. But the problem is, a lot of Ishiki's strength comes from his dojutsu, as his main fighting styles came from summoning different weapons or shrinking himself to dodge or counter people. However, Jura doesn't have access to that. But what Jura does have to his advantage is having the Rinnegan, and what we have seen of him thus far shows him being proficient in using it, as we have seen him use a Biju bomb in various different forms. And I have a feeling Jura is finally going to bring back some of the forgotten Rinnegan abilities, as I feel like these abilities were only used in Naruto Shippuden to compensate for pain, and then after that whole arc, those abilities were just completely forgotten. Jura also has the claw marks, which I mentioned earlier, and that gives him access to leave any fight he wants to, and also counter people using speed like Isshiki would have. And since he has Ishiki's battle experience from his chakra link, then it would allow him to already be proficient in using this fighting style. So again, this is purely speculation, but he should be scaling beyond Isshiki now, which means that now he is approaching the likes of Baryon Mode Naruto. And before you go comment saying that Isshiki is stronger than Baryon Mode Naruto, I'm talking at the peak of Baryon Mode Naruto's power, which was in fact stronger than Isshiki. Anyways, Baryon Mode Naruto is potentially his toughest matchup yet. Jura's next fight was against Biju form Himawari, which similar to Kawaki wasn't really much of a fight. However, unlike Kawaki, Himawari did put up a valiant effort and definitely had Jura somewhat intrigued. The most interesting part about this fight was how Jura stated that Himawari has caused Jura to want to use a bit of his true power. That statement is absolutely insane, because if what he's saying is true, then he has done all of these feats thus far, like beating Kawaki, knocking down Boruto, and beating Himawari, and that is only a portion of his true power. This power is currently unknown, but realistically it means that Jura is just going to keep scaling up and up and up as the story progresses. And if this guy still has an ace like that up his sleeve, then regardless of what it is, this means that we can take all of the feats that he's done currently as Jura in his base form. For example, you have Kawaki in his base form, and then you have Kawaki in his Karma V2 form. And someone's base is significantly weaker than their awakened form, and with that example you can see that someone's base is significantly weaker than their awakened form. So Jura still has much more potential beyond the scaling that we have done thus far for him, and I think we have found ourselves a new Boruto 2 Blue Vortex villain, which honestly surprised me a lot, as I was expecting it to be someone like Kawaki or Ko to be the villain, and what has happened in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex thus far has been nothing short of incredible, and there was no way I could have predicted anything like this would have occurred. And the divergence of my expectations is what makes a series so enjoyable to read month by month. But I want to know what you guys think about Boruto's time skip thus far, and let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, we can finally move on to Jura sniping Boruto at the end of chapter 12. So seemingly Jura has literally not moved from his spot where he fought Himawari, however he managed to shoot a Biju bomb from that point to Boruto's position in what seemed like an instantaneous attack that didn't even allow Boruto the window to dodge. This distance is no joke, as it took Kawaki the entirety of chapter 12, or you could say that it took him the entire time that Boruto was fighting Hidari to reach that point whilst flying there as quickly as possible. So I'm not going to speculate how far this was or how quick they were going. Instead, we should just consider the fact that Jura managed to do this twice, both times with pinpoint accuracy. And it was so quick that Boruto, the strongest shinobi of all time, didn't even know what hit him. And it's not just the speed, which is no joke, as the potency of this attack rendered Boruto borderline unconscious and was completely unable to move, allowing him to be arrested by Konohamaru. And if you know anything about Boruto, you should know that Konohamaru has no rights even laying his hands on Boruto at this point. Now I know that there is no real way to compare this feat to the likes of Baryon Mode Naruto, but instead we can take the narrative implications of this, with Jura being a completely different monster to what we initially thought. However, there is some silver lining for us Boruto and Naruto fans, and that was the fact that Boruto was completely caught off guard by this, and he had absolutely no idea that Jura Jura would pull anything like this. And I can't say the same for Sarada, or should I call her Jura victim number 4, but it is pretty safe for us to assume that unless this is from point blank range, I trust Boruto could dodge this attack. It's the same scenario where Mitsuki knocked out Kawaki, although it's clear that Mitsuki is not necessarily stronger than Kawaki as a result of this moment. But what if I told you that on top of all of this stuff that I just covered, Jura still has far more potential to even rival the gods of the Otsutsuki realm. Jura so far has shown he is the most knowledgeable and intelligent of the Shinju, and he also has that thirst to learn more about the world. So the more and more he learns, the more he is going to scale in terms of power, because he's going to learn, for example, the true powers of the Rinnegan rather than using what just comes naturally to him. Or for example, he could gain the knowledge of all ninjutsu, and theoretically, because his chakra pools are so high, he could even use stuff like the Shadow Clone Jutsu or even create his own ninjutsu. We saw that he is capable of creating new forms of the Biju Bomb, not only as a sniper, but forming it from the eye itself, and I think the Shinju have been designed to constantly grow and evolve in terms of power, and that is why Boruto is in a rush to defeat them, because with the knowledge that Kashin Koji has given him, he knows that Jura is going to scale much more in the future, so the earlier he can take him out, the more safe his world is going to be. The reason that I believe that Jura has the ability to scale in this way is because the likelihood is that Boruto is stronger than him right now, but as we go forward, Jura will become a bigger and bigger threat until Boruto can no longer beat him in his current form, giving a reason for Boruto to use things like the Karma or even awaken the Jogon. Jura is the key for Boruto's progression, as without Jura, what reason is there for Boruto to get any sort of power up with him being the strongest person in the series? Then with Boruto progressing, we will then have people like Kawaki or Sarada or even Mitsuki who will also progress as a result of Boruto's progression. So Jura is actually the perfect villain for the post time skip, and that is why he's written in such a way to give him infinite potential. And giving him the claw marks is the perfect way for him to escape if Boruto was stronger, for example. I can see that being the reason behind the emphasis on them being able to use them. But we also are yet to see his true form or true power, which I mentioned earlier, which I assume we will likely have to wait a long time for. However, there is also the potential that Jura could eat a Thorn Soul, gaining much more power of the Thorn Soul that he eats, which would be pretty insane and would probably break the entire series. So I will leave that for another video in the future. But that is going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy them, please consider liking and subscribing, as it helps out the channel tons, and it helps this video get pushed out to more people. Also comment your thoughts on Jura's true powers, and I will make sure to reply to all of your theories and opinions. But with that all said, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.